Welcome back to Fresh Start Mondays, I guess. Is it still called Fresh Start Mondays?
Yep.
Okay, cool. This week, Nikki and I were talking about last week a little bit after the last session, and we're saying, what's something that we can do to take it even deeper or take it even further, and kind of get closer to the wheelhouse of a lot of what I and my team, what we do every single week in helping entrepreneurs such as yourselves navigate any time, whether it be economic or disaster related. And one of the things that I guess the topic this week is to, eliminating bad money stories to open up money flow. And one of the questions that most of you saw posted was, what limiting belief around money do you think you have that's holding back your money flow? And the interesting thing is why we want to talk about limiting beliefs is because around money is because that I found over the years, over the last couple of decades of working with different entrepreneurs has been kind of like the keys to the kingdom. Because even though it is a belief around money, it really often has nothing to do with money. Okay. And so for those of you who are on, at some point, I'm going to run through a little quick exercise of a series about 12 questions that I do all the time in trainings to help people kind of open up the possibilities of, or kind of like reveal the breadcrumbs, if you will, that will lead you to some of the root causes of some of our challenges. And one great way to test this is to, especially during these times, as we're taking moments to have an introspective, having introspective moments throughout these times and thinking about things, because we have a lot of time to ourselves because we're sometimes, we're often stuck at home, to think about, our financial circumstances, and I think one of the biggest things that when we first started this was one of the biggest concerns was in the area of financials. And we kind of reevaluate how we look at our lives. And one of the quick tests to see if you have any limiting beliefs around money that's impacting your financial circumstance is to ask yourself this, is that at this very moment, are you financially where you want to be, or how you imagine yourself to be, or wanted or dreamed yourself to be right now? So for those of you who have access to the Q&A, okay, do a 1 for yes, I am absolutely where I wanted to be financially since in terms of my goals, or 2 is not quite yet, okay, or you're on your way there but you're not quite there. Okay, so again, the question is to go to the Q&A and answer is, are you financially where you want to be? Or you put 1, you say yes, totally, or 2, I'm on my way. Okay, so it's and it's okay. And here's an interesting thing is that I asked this question before. Well, something similar. Years ago, I was asked to speak to a room full of 300 parents at Cornerstone up in PV, Cornerstone Elementary. And I was introduced as the financial guy, and I just looked around. People were like, "Oh, great, we're going to listen to this guy for an hour, and he's this financial guy." And people were rolling their eyes. People were like getting uncomfortable. And then, so when I went there and I introduced myself, I said, "I'm not actually a financial guy. I'm kind of a money guy. In fact, I'm here to talk about how you talk to your kids about money." So I started talking about that topic for a little bit. But in order to do that, I had to warm up a little bit with the audience. And I said, okay, great. Let me ask you guys a question. Okay. How many of you had the conversation with your kids about the birds and bees? In other words, how many had this conversation about sex? And this is an elementary school, Cornerstone Elementary. So I didn't expect the amount of hands that went up. Half the room raised their hand. I was like, wow, very progressive school here. You've already talked to your kids about the birds and bees, and they're not even, most of them haven't even hit puberty. And I said, well, that's good. Okay, put your hands down. I said, how many of you, okay, have talked to your kids about money and the role money will play in their lives and how to best utilize money to augment their lifestyle and achieve their dreams? And then basically, Suzanne, it's funny. He said, nowhere near where I need to be. And he put a 1 anyway. Okay. And so what happened was all the hands went down and maybe 2 or 3 hands went up compared to the birds and bees, 2 to 3 hands out of a room of 300 people. Whereas the birds and bees conversation, half the room had already had that conversation. I said, look around the room. You're more willing to talk to your kids about sex than you are about money. And I wasn't there to vilify and make them feel bad. I said, I totally get it. I mean, we want to teach our kids the best thing possible, but deep down inside, if we don't feel we have a good grasp on money just yet, how will we feel confident talking about money to our kids? We want to make sure we give them the right answer, we give them right guidance. And if we are dealing with struggles around it, I'm not ready to talk to my kids about money. Okay. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. But here's the problem, kids don't learn from and just like we didn't learn from someone sitting down and talking to us about money. We all learned from watching the behavior patterns of people who handled money before we even got a chance to touch money for the very first time. We observed the behaviors, we observed the emotions, we felt the palpable energy around money, okay, when it came to that. So beliefs such as what we got here, the number one thing was money is hard to make. Okay, I literally remember my mom telling me this growing up, is money is hard to make but easy to spend. So guess how I lived my life before I got that limiting belief handled. I made money as complicated and as difficult to make as possible, and I spent it as fast as I could. Okay. Another one is, okay, well, there's others. For those of you who put others on there, okay, well, I guess at the risk of revealing your belief, feel free. By the way, if you have struggles talking about money, well, so let me go back to my story to kind of give point to that. So what happened was I said, okay, great, let's do a little test here. Okay, here's a couple tests I want to do. And for those of you who, okay, let's do the 1-2 conversation again, okay, to determine, this is a test to determine if you have anxiety around money, if you have some limiting beliefs or bad money stories running underneath, guiding your decisions around money, okay? If you love money, okay, go ahead and enter 1 in the Q&A. If you love money, okay, go ahead and put 1. If you don't love it, press enter 2. Okay. Okay. Go ahead and do that. I don't need to or deserve to make a lot of money. Okay, so that's another one. I don't need or deserve to make a lot of money. Okay, so if there's a deep part of you that believes that you don't need, or we'll go through this as well because okay. Okay, so for those of you who entered 1, great, that's awesome, okay? For those of you who entered 2 for that answer, which is you didn't raise your hand if you don't love money, then that's okay. You don't have to answer the next question because you already have an element of money anxiety or you have a bad money story running, okay? There's a part of you that has maybe a belief that loving money is bad. Okay, so the next question is this to test whether or not you have money anxiety or bad money stories running or a limiting belief around money is, put a 1 if you love debt. Put a 2 if you don't love debt. Okay? Put a 1 if you love debt. Put a 2 if you don't love debt. Okay? And I love this question for real estate agents. Okay? 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay. So far, all 2s. For those of you who said, no, I do not love debt, you absolutely have some form of money anxiety and bad money story or limiting beliefs around money. Why do I say that? What do you think each and every single one of your clients do in order for them to buy a house? They incur debt. If you don't love debt, then you don't love what your clients are doing to buy a home from you. Unless you're doing all cash deals and that's your only way of doing that, okay? Now, notice I didn't say what kind of debt. You know, in 1973, when Nixon pulled us off the gold standard where gold had to be there to back up money, to back up the US dollar, we became a debt-driven society, which means without debt, our economy would literally crumble. Our economy would struggle without good debt. Okay, so what do we call good debt? When there's an investment, when there's a debt that's leveraged to help you expand your business, to grow your life, to create a future for yourself, to allow you to get in the door. So many businesses, I mean, what do you think a lot of venture capital is for? It's not always angel where we just give you the money and just don't expect anything in return, okay? It's called a debt on the ledger. It's called an investment on the ledger. It's called a cash infusion, which doesn't necessarily means income. It's something else. You know, I worked with a client years ago where in the very beginning, we got him to 6 figures like almost immediately, but it was all in the form of lines of credit that he needed to grow his business. So when doing that, I said, great, you got to 6 figures already. He goes, no, 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 this is all lines of credit and this is all debt. And it's like, how is that a problem? When you pull out that line of credit and you get that cash in hand, does it spend differently? Is it utilized differently? Does it not help your business grow? Now, if you have management issues on how you manage your debt, that's different than the perception of debt itself. We call this particular exercise, this technique that we use in our programs called debt perception, which is how we use debt to stimulate money flow in our businesses and in our lives. Okay. So the answer to indicate that you don't have any money anxiety or you don't have any bad money stories or limiting beliefs going on is yes to both of those questions. Now, what I did with that group of parents, I went out there and I said, okay, great. Let me ask, how many of you are willing to share your annual income, like how much you make, every single year? Nobody raised their hand, which was not surprising to me. And so I said, okay, so if nobody's raising their hands, how many of you like to said, then I'm just gonna have to pick somebody? And all of a sudden people got even more freaked out. It's like, oh my God, he's gonna pick somebody so that I have to answer or at least be exposed that I don't want to answer. So I picked the grouchiest, grumpiest, most resistant person because I'm kind of a masochist like that, I guess. In the front row, and he was dressed up in a suit and everything. You sir, like look like you're the most resistant and you don't want to answer my question. Is there any particular reason why you didn't raise your hand? He goes, well, I don't think it's any of your business. I said, oh, okay, well, that's okay. What do you mind telling me what you do for a living, sir? And he says, I'm a corporate lawyer. I say, oh, do you do litigation? Or yes, I do litigation. I'm like, okay, cool. So you're in the trenches. You're working with the companies and the corporations. He goes, yes, you're fighting for their rights, right? He goes, yes. Do you work downtown? Do you work locally? He goes, no, I work downtown. It's like, oh, like Figueroa? He's like, yeah, in one of the buildings over there. It's like, okay, cool. I pulled up my phone. I looked it up, what the standard is. And I looked at him and I said, well, you live in a pretty affluent area. You live in PV, I'm assuming, right? And basically what I did is I broke it down and I got within very accurately that made his face turn white, how much he made a year. And because of my knowledge, because I had a client who actually owned a law firm, so I had a very good idea of what kind of comp structure he was on, especially working for another firm, working way to be a partner, and basically not only nailed his annual income ballpark range, but also his bonus structure. To which he stood there and says, do I know you? How do you know this? I said, it's called Google. And all I needed to know was what kind of lawyer you were and where you worked and where you live, which is around here. Okay. But the biggest thing is that what was the big deal? How is it a problem that I know how much you make? Okay. Because a lot of us grow up with stories around and events and circumstances shaming us for making a lot of money, or shaming us for not making enough money, or shaming us for like, any kind of variety of circumstance. Like if you have an association, if you make a lot of money, but you grew up believing that those with a lot of money are greedy, then you don't want anybody to know about that because they don't want to see you as greedy. Now, if you have struggled with money and you have struggles and you believe that, people with a lot of money are greedy, and there's a belief running underneath around that you learned when you were little, then guess what? Who wants to be labeled as greedy? I better not make a lot of money. That's what the unconscious mind is doing. Remember, it's not supposed to make sense. And this is why a lot of us struggle with the financial piece. And this is what I found over the years working with people with endless amounts of bad money stories running underneath and helping people eliminate that, is that you see these stories pop up. And when they finally embrace and accept the fact that it doesn't have to make sense, there's some fascinating stories that come up. Okay. How I learned about money was through my dad. We grew up in a home where it was a single income household, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, domestic engineer. And so our jobs were simple. My mom was supposed to be a housewife and my mother. My sister and I, our jobs were to be students. We weren't even allowed to get a job or a part-time job. I so wanted that paper route because I thought it was the coolest thing ever to ride around every morning before going to school and do the whole 80s movie thing. Okay, whatever. But But that wasn't the case. I wasn't allowed to do that. We weren't even allowed to talk about money in the house because dad covered it all. He took care of it. Don't even worry about it. I couldn't ask him how much he was making. I couldn't ask him about bills. He says, don't worry about it. Just focus on your studies. Until one day my dad realized maybe I should teach my son a little bit about money. He's getting a little bit older. I wasn't that much older. He didn't even wait till high school, actually. And one day I was sitting on the kitchen table after dinner, and my dad passed over this envelope, and I opened up the envelope, and there inside was a gold card, a credit card, was how my dad decided he wanted to teach me about money. And I said, oh, okay. And all he said to me was to read the material inside to learn about how to use that credit card, and one cautionary advice that he gave me, and that was it. Only use this card for emergencies only. Now, a 12-year-old kid perception of emergency is vastly different than from a 30, 40-year-old man, adult man. So my version of emergency was the McFarlane series of Spider-Man just came out with a limited run series that month. And I had no cash or check with me. And all I had was this credit card. I went to the cashier and I said, do you take credit card? He looked at me funny and says, why does this 12-year-old have a credit card, back when credit cards weren't even that popular in small boutique shops? And he goes, no, we don't take credit cards, cash or check. I said, I don't even know how to write a check. Okay. And so I could only put it on layaway for till the end of the day. And I was freaking out because I was literally seeing the comic book fly off the shelf. But then I remember from all the paperwork, there was something called cash advance. I was like, I wonder if that works. I went to the local ATM and it was like magic. I put in the PIN and all of a sudden money came out. And not only that, I could pull out as much as I want. So it seemed. That whole entire month was super magical until the end of the month came. And that's when the pain started, because my dad got the bill for a month full of cash advances to get what I wanted. And the pain started. And back then, my parents learned from their schooling in their home back in Taiwan that, corporal punishment is actually part of discipline, right? And so that's when the pain started, the lecture, the spanking, and all these different things that happen. In the beginning, I was listening, but towards the end, all I wanted was the pain to stop. It was like Charlie Brown, wah, 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 wah. I couldn't hear anymore of what my dad was saying. And then it got quiet and the pain did stop, because my dad, who was the minister of the pain during that time, also took it away. He literally sat me down, reached out his hand and said, give me back the credit card. Okay. And he took the credit card away. He goes, I'll let you know when you're ready. And to this day, I don't think he's ever released that from me until I released it myself. And so at that point, when he took the card away, the source of the money, the pain stopped. He stopped lecturing me. He stopped spanking me. He stopped punishing me. It was just done. He just took it away. That was the punishment. But for me, that was that little child, that little way in me said, that's the solution. The solution is this. And this little way learned a very powerful lesson, is that when it comes to money, little way gets in trouble. It's painful until somebody takes it away. So if you think about when that story gets implanted, okay, and not to mention all the other times my mom and my dad got into fights around money, okay, that just validated all those experiences I experienced even at an even younger age. So that later in life, every time I made a big chunk of money, and every time I made a lot of money, I created a roller coaster effect, because my unconscious mind kicked up that bad money story that, whoa, there's some money here. You're going to get in trouble soon. You better do something about that. And if I didn't kick it out fast enough, I would make these self-sabotaging decisions to make life completely catastrophic or cathartic, so that it'd be painful until the money was gone. And as long as money wasn't there, I wouldn't have to deal with the pain. Okay. And that's just one money story, okay, from one individual. For every individual there are, for like the however many people there are on the call today, there are that many different money stories. There are good money stories, and there are also bad money stories. And so the reason why we wanted to ask about that today, is about the limiting the beliefs around money, is to open up the conversation with yourself, okay, and to have that honest, truthful conversation about what kind of beliefs you have around money. Because I tell you right now, is that this was an accidental discovery on my end in terms of helping people with their work and transforming their business, transforming their life, changing all these different things. Because one of the biggest frustrations I had for a long time was I would help these businesses, I would help these entrepreneurs get their business, and we get to 80%, maybe even 90% of the goal that we set at the beginning, and they would quit. They would say, oh my God, this is a great way. They're happy, they're totally excited, they're leaving me testimonials. But in my mind, I said, wait, this is not 100%. We've only achieved 80 to 90% of the results. What is going on? And then what happened was I realized something. I said, for the most part, every time they made a decision to quit or stop, there was some kind of undertone of financial perception that was going on. Like they wanted to hold back, or they didn't want to push forward, or they want to push too hard, or something came up. And it was really odd. And I started to explore why it was there was this trend. It's not like not everybody stopped before 100%, but a lot of people did. And I wanted to increase the level of success rate in my mind in terms of getting people to 100%, even though even they were totally okay with hitting 80 to 90% of the goal. And so with one client, I tried it one time to kind of say, let's work on your money story first. And they go, what's that? And I said, and I, basically talked about what I talked about with you guys. And what happened was when we released that, not only did he jump past that 80, 90% block, the rate of achieving the goals in his business and in his life, in health and relationship, was completely different than how it was before. Before, it was kind of a slow as molasses type of thing, but slowly but surely, it's like, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, and he made it. It was like he willed himself to that 80% point. But once we released, it was like the keys to the kingdom. Everything opened up for him, and he just flew. He just went past his goal and kept going. And I said, wait, there's something here. And I thought maybe it was a unique thing. But dozens later, hundreds of different individuals later, in a variety of circumstances, whether it be through group trainings, through one-on-one work, that trend did not stop. And that's why we shifted our focus to work on people's bad money stories first. Because once you get that out of the way, I'm just imagining what it's like to be able to wake up every day and not stress about money, not worry about money. But if you are, you know exactly how to handle it. And so that you can actually take ownership of these beliefs around money that you have adopted, you've bought into. See, each of those money stories that do not serve you, because there's good money stories and then there's bad money stories. But the bad money stories are the one that kind of rear their ugly head, and they run like a low grade fever. And that's why a lot of us don't realize we even have them, because it's very, very unconscious. It's almost insidious that way. And so the reason why we wanted to post this poll in the very beginning is to see how many of us are willing to take ownership. And if you didn't answer the question and weren't willing to participate, there's probably some level of bad money stories running, or you just don't want to participate, and that's fine. But I wanted to talk a little bit about these bad money stories. And before we jump into the exercise on how you can actually uncover more breadcrumbs, we call it Uncover Your Money Truth exercise. So it kind of helps, it's structured in a way to help you kind of like, knock on the unconscious mind to open up, say, hey, let's see what kind of money stories are running underneath that we can resolve so that money stops being a problem. And how we stay adaptable and resilient in any economic swing and any disaster is that we realize that money doesn't care about man-made circumstances or even nature-made circumstances. Money just wants to come in if you want to let it. Think of money as being this abundant river that constantly flows through the entire world. And it's a question of whether or not you are having the ability or willing to open up and tap into that. It's like the ocean, right? There's always going to be water there, okay, albeit salt, but it could still be used and distilled down, or whatever the case may be. And it's always there. So for us to perceive, like, okay, where do I get my water? Go get some salt water, boil it out, take the salt and use that for food. And then the rest of it that's left over, it's steamed up, and then now you have water. It's abundant. No one's ever going to say, okay, the seas are going to dry up. If that's the case, then we've got much bigger problems than to worry about money. That's for sure. Okay. So let's first walk through the different answers that you have around limiting beliefs. Money is hard to make, okay? That is absolutely a story that we bought into, okay? Now, if we believe that money is hard to make, guess what the unconscious mind does? Anytime money comes easily, anytime a deal closes quickly, then we call this a fluke. It doesn't happen all the time because money is supposed to be hard. The perception that when to build a business, and millennials and even like the Gen Zs or whatever we want to call them, the kids after that, a lot of them have not been kind of raised in this perception that money is hard to make, and they're creating overnight YouTube successes and making millions of dollars, even though they're working, but they don't think it's work because it's fun for them. And because of that, there's that disparity, there's that generation gap. You know, when I do career days talks for kids and stuff like that, it's always fascinating to see what kind of stories show up already in their lives. Money is hard to make. So what happens if you have that belief money is hard to make, then what happens is that, like I said, we will make unconscious decisions to create struggle when it comes to making money. We will make decisions and take on debt, bad debt, or take on liabilities or take on responsibilities that force us to make work harder so that it justifies the money that we make. And if if you didn't work hard enough for the money, then all of a sudden we feel guilty for making the money. If we see somebody making money hand over fist and not working that hard, they must be doing something illegal because they're not working hard. And so that limiting belief around money starts to curate and cultivate this lifestyle, and this perception of life and business that makes it really, really challenging. Since that is kind of the number one limiting belief, do you want to start to ask yourself, how do you know to have that story? When did you buy into that story? Because it wasn't something we were born with. And we can't blame society because most of what we learn is between the ages of 0 to 7. So if you want to resolve that piece, that's how far back you need to go. Okay. Nobody chose there is a limited amount of money, which is great because that's where the lack mentality that we hear all the time comes from. That there is a limited amount of money that if we don't go out there, the zero sum and we fight for it and we get it, and there's not enough, then we don't make enough money. If one has that belief system that there's a limited amount of money, then that becomes a struggle because you're always stressing out, even though you are making money. So this is a very popular limiting belief for a lot of multimillionaires, or super people who are, or even billionaires, these people that I've spoken to before that are constantly stressed out about money, even though they have an abundance of it coming in, because there's a belief around a limited supply. So this not only potentially affects how you conduct your business, how you make money, but it also affects your lifestyle. Okay. If you're constantly stressed and worried about money, regardless of how much money you're making, and this is how I can confidently say your challenges around money actually have very little to do with money. Okay. It has to do with your perception, your relationship with money. But that goes even deeper than that, because that is driven and supported and motivated by stories and experiences you had as a child before you even realized the value of money. Money just became the scapegoat of those challenges, of those problems, right? Okay. We've seen in my work, we've seen elements of like trauma and abuse as a result of that has impacted how one approaches money. Okay. Case in point is one of my stories around, money getting me in trouble. Okay. There's another one here is I don't need or deserve to make a lot of money. That's a really simple one. If you do truly have that running underneath on the unconscious mind, every time you hit a certain threshold of just enough, that's only what you need. Okay. Now remember, okay, this is a need versus want conversation. Okay. Let me just touch on that real quick, and then we'll move on to the rest of it. Need versus want. There are only 5 core needs every human being has: air, food, water, shelter, and love. Beyond that, everything else is a want. The reason why we say we need a new car, we need new clothes, we need new technology, we need all these different things is because we were trained at a very young age. If we don't structure it as a need, we'll be told, no, I want that. No, you can't. But I need to have that. Why do you need that? I need to have that because X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And the first time parents comply and say, oh, okay, well, in that case, I'll give it to you. We've trained and we split the switch to structure our wants and desires as needs, which does a very interesting thing later in life. We don't know what we want anymore because everything is a need. So we structure our life and live our lifestyle based on need versus what it is that we actually want. The most successful people in the world that continue to be successful and happy are the ones who have re-strengthened and revitalized and rejuvenated their want muscle, the desires. Okay, so if you don't need or deserve to make a lot of money, then you'll always kind of make just enough, or you won't make enough at all. And you'll be struggling because you have to structure it as a need. Oh, like I need to make money. I need to make this sale. I need to grow my business. That's not a need. You want to, okay? Because as long as you have food, water, shelter, air, and love in your life, okay, then everything else is a want, okay, for survival, beyond survival. Money is evil. Money is dirty. Interesting enough, I went to Japan and spoke there, and they were so proud because we broke off into little groups to determine what was the number one most common limiting belief they had, or belief they had around money. It was so cute. They came back and in their broken English, and some of them were in back being cheered on by their Japanese compatriots. Said, our belief in our group, our main belief is money is dirty. And they're like, yeah, kitanai, kitanai. It's like they're all talking about dirty in Japanese and stuff like that. Yeah, they're like, yes, yes, yes. I'm like, oh, okay, great. So let me ask you this, okay? You think money is dirty? Do you like to be dirty? I mean, let me ask you, how many showers do you guys each take every day? And it was in the summertime, so it was really hot. I was like, on a day like this, how often do you take a shower? Most of them are saying once, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, depending on how busy they were, how many times they went in and out of the office or the house. I said, wow, okay, great. Why do you do that? It says, because you feel dirty. Okay, so you feel dirty. Why do you take a shower? Because you don't want to feel dirty. You don't want to feel dirty. So if you believe that money is dirty, why would you want money in your life? You don't even want to have like sweat, your own sweat on you, and you want to wash that off. And they sat there and they're like, they were so cute. They were so excited. And I was like, oh. And they said, he says, we want to go back and discuss. I said, okay, great. Go back and discuss. But just think about that, okay? And so it's fascinating. It's not just an American thing. It's a worldwide thing when it comes to this world of capitalism that we're doing that hopefully is changing because of these times, going to conscious capitalism. But what I wanted to do was kind of like introduce some of these living beliefs. And so with that being said, I'm going to do an exercise right now that'll help, give you guys something to work on this week in terms of exploring the tendrils or the breadcrumbs, like Hansel and Gretel, how to get back to the core beliefs that you have around money, so that having that awareness is going to start putting you on a path of how to truly resolve any financial circumstance or challenge that you have in life. And once you understand that piece, it starts to open up a whole new world for you. And when you are able to eliminate the limiting beliefs and bad money stories around money, these challenges around money that we indicated from the very beginning of this series that we've been running, it starts to go away, and we start to have the clarity of knowing what to put our attention to be able to pivot, to adapt, to stay resilient in any time, not just this time, but any other time in the future where the economy is shifting in a direction, another pandemic or another disaster, whatever will come. You'll have that confidence saying, nope, I got this handled because I trust that I can just basically find a way. Okay. All right. So let's, for those of you who who want to participate and want to take notes, I am about to go through a series of questions. And the way it works is basically this. I'm going to ask a question. And the reason why I want this to be a very quick exercise is because your unconscious mind is quicker than your conscious mind. Your conscious mind is the one that has to pull up all the old stories and filters and how to interpret what is being asked. And so what I'm saying is this, is that you want to complete the following question or sentences, if you will, with the first word or phrase that comes to mind. You don't want to censor what you get or look for the right answer. There is the first answer is actually the right answer. It's kind of like when they tell us in school, it's like, double check your work. Don't do that. If you studied and did your work, just whatever comes up is the first answer. Now, if you're careless and rushing, that's a different story and you just put it in the wrong box. But oftentimes, how many of us have actually gone back, double checked our work, changed our answer, and realized the first answer was correct? And that's because the unconscious mind actually has the best answer. So what you want to do is you want to let yourself go with the first reaction from each of these sentences and do it as quickly as possible. The reason why I want to say you don't want to write full sentences out, because then it starts to filter and starts to become intellectualized. And you just want one word or one phrase answers to anchor the answer so that later on you can go back and expand on it. The first and quickest response is usually the most accurate when it comes to this exercise. Okay, so if you have your notepads out and if your notes open, okay, let's go ahead and do this really quickly. Okay, so the first question is this. Okay, finish this sentence. My biggest fear about money is, My biggest fear about money is what? Okay. One word, one phrase answer. Okay. I'm going to go relatively quickly. My biggest fear about money is blank. Okay. Second question. My early experience with money was, my earliest experience with money was what? Okay. Knee-jerk answer. First question, first thing that comes up. Okay. Next one is a complex equivalence. It's like an equation. Number 3 is money equals blank. Money equals what? Okay. Money equals what? Next question. When I have money, I usually blank. When I have money, I usually what? Next question. In order to have more money, I'd need to. In order to have more money, I'd need to. What? Okay. Next one is my father felt money was blank. This is important. If you grew up without a father or an uncle, grand, whoever a father figure was, my father felt money was. Okay. My mother felt money was. Same thing here. If you didn't grow up with a mother, any mother figure in your life growing up. My mother felt money was what? In my family, money caused blank. In my family, money caused blank. Okay. In my family, money caused blank. Next question. I'm afraid if I had more money, I would blank. I'm afraid if I had more money, I would what? Ten. People with lots of money or people with money are what? People with lots of money are blank. Next one. I'd have more money if blank. I'd have more money if blank. Okay. And the last one. If I could afford it, I would blank. If I could afford it, I would what? Okay. Now, most of the time when people do this exercise, just going through the exercise starts to bring up some interesting answers if you just kind of trusted your unconscious mind to answer however it wanted to answer. Okay. The next step would be to go through each of those answers and expound on them. Expand on them. Write down your descriptions. Write down any stories associated, any memories that came up, and explain and define what you meant by each of those answers, and expand on without and look at how your mind will try to filter it and try to make it the right answer. And what we're not, there is no right or wrong answer in this. There is only the truth. And this is why we call this exercise uncovering your money truth. Okay. So what I encourage you to do this week is to take the answers, because this is something, this particular exercise reveals tactics and strategies that I do for our one-on-one clients that sometimes span over months, just going through each of the beliefs that are hidden behind each of these answers. Okay. There are more questions, but these are the 12 fundamental questions to start things off. There is a very popular book out there called Overcoming Under Earning or something like that. It's by one of my peers and colleagues, Barbara Stanny. And a lot of these questions is what she kind of goes through. And there's more there if you want to look up that. But other than that, what for this week, would love for you to start to get some ideas on how to kind of go deeper on these things. Okay. Claudia says, can we get the questions? I did not have the time to write them down. Yes. Actually, I have a whole free ebook guide if you guys want to, that kind of explores some of these questions. If you guys want to, put a 1 in the Q&A if you guys want access to that free guide. It's called From Money Anxiety to Six-Figure Mastery. And it's a free guide that talks about all of this and then gives you some stuff that you can go deeper on and stuff like that. What's up, Kay? Good to see you on here. Hey, Shireen. Okay, yeah. So if you go to, the URL is go.thesixfigureacademy.com. Actually, let me put that in chat so you guys can see that.
Okay, perfect. I was going to do that. So yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, go.thesixfigureacademy.com. It's cool because we just updated the whole teaching e-series in that process. So it's go.thesixfigureacademy.com. If you go there, you'll see me doing a video talking about my story in greater detail, but you don't have to watch the whole story because you just heard it here. And then you just put your name and email and just boom, we'll send it to you. Okay. It's a pretty decent guide. I mean, you go through it, it's a PDF and you can just download it right away. So you just get it there, and it actually goes through a few more steps so you can explore on what you can do about changing those money stories. But great question. So other than that, okay, cool. Shireen can't see it. Go.thesixfigureacademy.com. Shireen, and I think you reached out.
You sent it just to me.
Oh, okay. Whoops.
Hold on.
Okay.
I'll resend it.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I was like, this is only for Nikki. Okay, cool. Thanks, Shireen. Thanks for giving that feedback. Okay, good. Shireen, I think you and I are Facebook friends now, so you can always just ask me there in case you didn't get it. So, okay. So yeah, so there's a lot of free stuff that we put out there. We also have, I think, a free Facebook group called The Money Lab. I also have a podcast where I interview these successful people and up and coming people about their money stories. So if you want to learn more about what money stories look like with different people and what journeys that the podcast is called The Money Lab. Just do a search for The Money Lab and my name and you'll find it. It's on Apple and Google Podcast and Spotify too. It's on Spotify too. So if you want to, there's about 100, almost 100 episodes of just different people, and sometimes it's just me talking about different topics. A lot of free stuff. There's my YouTube channel, my social media, stuff like that. Just feel free to kind of connect with me anywhere. I'm not that hard to find. But anyway, so for this week, take your answers that you had, and then if you guys, you know what, Nikki, I'm actually going to email this exercise, this sheet to you.
Okay.
So that way they, anybody who wants it, they can just get it from you, or you can email it to them. Yeah. So if you got the answers down and you want to, actually, can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, just click share screen.
Okay, so those of you who are watching and want to take a quick, take out your cameras to take a quick picture. Okay. This is the Uncover Your Money Truth. Do you guys all see that? Okay. So just take a quick snapshot of that if you want to get a head start and not have to wait. Get the guide anyway. The guide will tell you about what to do with all that stuff. But at least this way you can take the week to really kind of dive deep. And maybe, when I tell couples to go on money dates to talk not about their kids, not about work, not about life, but we call it a money date to talk about each of because everybody has a different money story underneath. Some of the biggest financial challenges between couples and married couples is what we call a clash of money stories, because everybody grows up with a different money story, and it's silly to assume that both people are on the same page when it comes to money. And so literally we will have the couples go out on a date and pull the sheet out and take about 2-3 minutes to kind of go through and then compare their answers and talk about the answers with each other. It's actually very cathartic and very helpful. We've saved very many marriages with this exercise just because, all of a sudden they start to realize, oh my God, your definition of money is completely different from mine. No wonder we're arguing about money, because we have to unify our stories and have a common goal, and also embrace the fact and honor the fact that each person has a different story running. And also to realize that maybe there's some stories or bad money stories we need to get rid of. Okay. So your goal this week, if you choose to partake in this exercise, is to expand on all the answers and explore the different type of events and circumstances and memories in your life that are driving and supporting potential bad money stories that are underneath, so that you can let that go, so that you can start to create a shift in how money flows into your life. Okay. And what's interesting, what I love about this particular area of work that I do, that it's actually niche independent. It's independent of any niche. It works in every industry. It works as long as you have a business, as long as you're an entrepreneur, as long as you're looking to make money. It works even if you're not, even if you're an employee. It works everywhere, because money is such a pervasive thing in this capitalistic world we live in. Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's recorded now, so they can always go back and look at that. So
You
anyway.
wanna give me your email and I'll type it out for them, and then they can email you if they want copies of anything. That way I don't have to be in the middle of it.
Yeah, sure. it's a way at let me just put it here. Way at t6fa.com. Let's use that one. Way at the Six Figure Academy, but that's shorter, so you don't have to type as much. It's way
Perfect.
at t6fa.com.
That way, if you guys want copies of anything that he mentioned today, you can just send him a quick email requesting those things.
Nikki, you're funny. Leave me out of it. I have enough work to do. All right. So are there any pressing questions that anybody has that they want to ask and get off their chest? Or it's this topic is interesting, Nick. It's funny because sometimes we get a lot of questions, sometimes we get no questions, and then afterwards we get a whole bunch of emails. So no questions.
I don't think so.
Going once, going twice. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Sometimes it can be motivating, sometimes it may not be. But the key thing is this is one of the toughest conversations that we can have with ourselves, not with anybody else, but with ourselves. Because again, if you're willing to go there, and if you're willing to have that deep, honest conversation with self, it is the beginning of achieving the keys to your own unique kingdom of success. When we release ourselves from the tendrils and the shackles of a bad money story, life becomes amazing. And I've seen it happen too many times to deny not continuing to talk about this, because it's one thing if this has been a theoretical journey for myself, like some of my peers and colleagues do. But it's another thing when I see this every single day, and the changes in lives that it makes happen, not just financially. Marriages being saved, relationship between parents and children improving, health being improved. I mean, all areas of life being impacted simply by eliminating bad money stories. Who'd have thunk? And because that's what I'm saying, that the money is an easy cover up. See, money doesn't care that we're blaming it. Money doesn't care that's a scapegoat. It says money doesn't care what label you give it. It just says, okay, great, whatever label you give me, this is how I'm going to behave. But the problem is human beings do that to cover up for deeper challenges it's what's actually keeping them stuck. And when we take the guise of the money piece off, we can't hide behind money anymore. And it becomes a much more profound endeavor to creating deep transformational change for success in our lives and happiness. That's a big thing. If you want to unlock your unique code of happiness, this is one of the first steps and ways to do it. Cool.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week, and we will see you all next Monday.
All right. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to what shows up.
Bye.
Bye.